All right, so you may be watching this little project that I have going with Brett and going, what's going on here, gentlemen? What are you guys trying to accomplish? You realize you're doing this in public? Yeah, we do realize we're doing this in public, as a matter of fact. So what is exactly am I trying to accomplish with Mr. Brett? Well, I'm performing an experiment. And for the purposes of this experiment, let's call him Baby Eater X. He's test subject. He's an atheist in good standing, doesn't believe in God, and doesn't think he has any good evidence. So the challenge that has been laid before me is I see it a little differently than Brett. Ultimately, I honestly don't care what he believes. I know that sounds shocking to some of you, but I really don't. My agenda is never to convince any one individual person that God exists or God does not exist. I have a much bigger, more comprehensive project in mind that I've been working on all the time. And he's a part of it. As I see the project, when I tell you that there's an ontology to my practice, everybody understands, because I've said enough times, I disappear in my prayer closet, okay? I have a powerful subjective internal experience that's 100% real to me. Almost everybody listening to me knows that that's true, including all the atheists. So what's at issue is the ontology. Am I actually connecting to an ontological reality? Okay? Or is it just, Jesus fifis in my little heart? Am I just having Jesus fifi, a Jesus party in my little heart of hearts that isn't really connected to an ontology at all? Jesus thoughts in my pretty little head. Oh, Jesus, I love you so much. Well, there isn't a Jesus, Craig. Wake up. Is that what's going on? Is that what's going on? So, the atheist, the villainous atheist, the Brett, the atheist comes along and says, prove this Jesus to me, Craig. And I say to him, that's the wrong thing to say, atheist. I cannot prove to you the ontology. What I can do, and what I've started to tell people I can do on my channel, and Brett was one of the people who was actually listening and understood what I was getting at, is that I can give you the tools to evidence it for yourself. That's what I'm ultimately trying to do. That's the best case scenario for my type of apologetics when it comes to my prayer life and my religious practices in the real world. Now keep in mind, there's a couple of key things to understand. First of all, these religious practices are extraordinarily important to me. Extraordinarily, I can't stress this enough. Way more important than almost everything else in my life. If I had to prioritize my life as it is lived now, my religious experiences, my religious practices, my wife, my cat, bang, almost nothing else. Almost nothing else. Sorry, guys. Oh, wait, what about us, Craig? What about you? Almost nothing else. Did I make that pretty crystal clear? Yeah, not that much else. Sorry, guys, take a back seat to what? To those three things. That's it. Those three things are my life. Now, that was, when I was in high school, I brought this up and I noticed that my life wasn't that different then. I had priorities then. My friends, music, movies, and getting girls. That's it. That's all I cared about then. Honestly, everything else took a back seat. That was it. That was all I cared about. That was passionately consumed me almost every minute of the day. Hanging out with my friends, probably in that order. Hanging out with my friends, music, movies, getting girls. That's it. Yeah, I did okay. I was pretty good with the ladies. Wasn't bad. You should see some of the girls I hooked up with. I did pretty well, actually. I'm pretty impressed with myself looking back on it. Wait, hello. Her? Yep. Anyways, yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hold the applause. Now, so what am I trying to accomplish with Brett? Ultimately, it doesn't matter to me what Brett winds up believing. What I am trying to do, and this is the project in general, how this ties into what I'm doing altogether, is that, and this is related to him, is that I'm trying to open up the lines of communication between me and the non-believer. Process out the language that is Christianese, faith-based language. That's a really important part of the project as far as I'm concerned. And that's a really important part of what I'm doing. Processing out the Christianese. Not speaking in language that secular people just don't understand. Christians do that all the time. Christians talking Christianese to each other, it sounds like Chinese to everybody else. I got that immediately. Why? Because I wasn't raised Christian. It's really, really obvious to me when Christians are talking Christianese. And they do things in the language that they speak to each other that further alienates them from just the general population at large. It's a really big part of this. Again, I've said this before, but it's worth repeating. Some of this is politics, 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 some of this is politics. And I'd be really surprised if there's anything other than politics going on. Now, let's just say my goal with Brett is as an evangelist, as I kind of laid it out as. Evangelism 101. To be a truly successful evangelist is to establish rapport. Bang, establish rapport. Bang, establish rapport. Is there a step 2? I doubt it. Now that's not evangelism according to I, Craig Reed. That's evangelism according to the Apostle Paul. I become all things to all people so that I might win some. That's basically Dale Carnegie in a nutshell. How to win friends, influence people. It's the same idea. Establish rapport, establish rapport, establish rapport. That's it. There's no step 2. Now, why? I mean, there's a lot of different complex things that I can go into. What I'm doing appears simple and, stupid. It feels really stupid, Craig. No, it's really not. It's really smart. Trust me. It's a really good plan, guys. It's got it all figured out. Okay, it's not. There's a lot of things going on. First of all, let's just deal with the evangelism side. Evangelism 101. What draws people to my religious practices is going to be different for every single person. As I tried to explain to Brett yesterday, when I went into the church on the night in question, when I became a Christian, what I was looking for, I found. But what I was looking for was different from every other human being on planet Earth. More than anything else, I wanted peace of mind. That's what I wanted more than anything else. That's what I was really honest to God wanted. Because I had gotten everything else to some degree or another. When I was in my 20s, I wanted adventure. Part of that was drugs, alcohol, adventure, to be blunt about it, sexy times with hot girls. Yeah, okay, whatever. Stuff like that. So I'd hooked up with I had been there and done that to a certain degree. And I was still hungry. I had been there and done that to a certain degree. I'd tried it all at that point, in a way, yeah. And I was still hungry, but what I found myself hungry for more than anything else was peace of mind, shelter, a place of sanctuary, a place of refuge. And that's exactly what I found in the church that I first connected with. Now, some of that was politics too. Had they been hypocritical douchebags like they are in some other churches, I probably never would have connected. So that's important. I hear people, like I heard in one person's deconversion story, and then I started talking to the people at my church and they were all hypocritical douchebags and I winced inside. Why? It's unnecessary. It's bad politics. And that's instrumental in chasing some people out the door. I know that for a fact. Why? Because if there had been hypocritical, there were a couple at the first church I wound up at, but if there had been a lot, I wouldn't have stayed. So they were welcoming, and they made an environment where I could feel safe, warmed, loved, appreciated, things like that. As a general rule, that's rare in the Christian community. Think of how tragic what I just said is, because I promise you it's true. As a general rule, that is rare in the Christian community. The church that I found was rare amongst churches. Talk about an abomination, rare. To find a church where you feel loved and accepted and people are just basically nice and decent to you. Think about that. That's rare. Listen to the stories that the atheists tell you about the churches they grow up in. Totally different experience. Hypocritical douchebags coming and going. Almost everything they dealt with was a hypocritical douchebag to one degree or another. And I don't think they're exaggerating. I don't think they're lying. I really don't. I've listened to enough of these stories to think that maybe maybe they're not even going into it as bad as it actually was. So if I had come up against some of the things that you find in today's present church, I would have, I might never have stayed. Because one of the things I absolutely, case closed, promise you I was looking for was peace of mind more than anything else. And I found it. Now, I found it through my connection to my prayer life. And I'm not going to talk as spiritual as I deliberately soften my language to process out the God, the faith, because I understand that some of this audience is secular people. And I'm trying to relate, man. I'm trying to relate, bro. Because Christians do another head trip on themselves. They start listening for the exalted language, for the hallelujah language. And we should stop doing that altogether. Why? It's alienating to the rest of the world. You high-five each other. You high-five each other. What a holy roller you and the other person are. That's what happens a lot in church today. It still happens in churches I go to. There's a lot of cheerleading for Jesus, which isn't necessarily bad, but it's often alienating to people who don't share your beliefs. And Christians don't seem to care or realize that. I do care, and I do realize that. I do both. I care and I realize it. It's alienating language. That's why I avoid it. I studiously try to avoid it in my videos. You know, I might at some point make videos that are more geared towards Christians where I don't try to avoid it. But right now, you know, that's how it is for the time being. So, what was I talking about? Okay. Evangelism 101. Establish rapport. Establish rapport. Establish rapport. This, according to the Apostle Paul, I become all things to all people so that I might win some. Now, whether I win some, whether I win bread or not, is ultimately not up to me. That's why I'm not that concerned with it. The second step that the Apostle Paul tells you to do is plant seeds. Now, here's where we get to the real nitty-gritty of what expert evangelism actually is. The best seeds that you could possibly plant, the best case scenario for planting seeds are the ones that you're not trying to plant. Hello? That's why there's no second move from establishing rapport. How an atheist usually experience your arguments for God is like, okay, here's the part where I run my believe in Jesus scam on you. That's how they experience it, I promise. I know what you think you're trying to accomplish. I'm telling you how it reads to them. Okay, now that we've established rapport, let me go into running my believe in Jesus scam on you. Step 2 is usually self-defeating. There shouldn't be a step 2. When you look at Stephanie, when you look at her video, yeah, back to Stephanie. Hey, Stephanie! It's back to Stephanie again. Evangelism 101, she did it perfectly. And she had an interview with Godless Dance. The first 45 minutes, that's almost note for note perfect. That's exactly how I do it, and she did it, as far as I'm concerned, she did it the right way. First 45 minutes, all she was doing was asking her questions about, politics, and they were just kind of breaking bread and establishing rapport. And I could tell by Godless Dance's responses that Stephanie blew her mind. Blew her mind to a certain degree. Why? Because she was expecting, it upended all of her prejudices about what a Christian was. Right then and there on the spot. First of all, Stephanie's fairly liberal. Almost a libtard. A little bit more liberal than I am, actually. She believes in universal health care. Maybe. I'm not convinced it could ever pass. I'm not entirely sold on it. I don't know. I'm willing to discuss it. But she believes in, and she wasn't, that blew Bionic Dance's mind. Second of all, Bionic Dance is an out of the closet lesbian. And Stephanie wasn't getting on her case about it. That speaks volumes to people. What speaks louder to people than what you say is what you actually are. Why? Because you can't hide it. Speaks volumes to people. You want to upend somebody's stereotypes about Christianity? Just be true to yourself. Just be who you are and be a practicing Christian. They'll read between the lines. Wait, Craig Reed is a Christian and he seems sane and reasonable. How is this possible? How is this possible? That's the first question that most people will start asking themselves if you have an authentic experience with him. He seems like a sane and reasonable human being. Granted, I don't really seem like a sane and reasonable human being. I'm trying to seed that into everybody's... Which part exactly did you seem like a sane and reasonable human being, Greg? Whatever. Okay, fine. So that's a little bit of a stretch. But if I were to seem like a sane and reasonable human being, that speaks volumes to people. It upends the stereotypes. She upended all of Bionic Dance's stereotypes without even trying. So those seeds are planted, and those are real seeds that can't be uprooted. Why? Because you're not consciously planting them. They're more about what you actually are. It's easy to upend people's stereotypes about Christians. Why? Just be true to yourself. You don't fit all the stereotypes. You're a hypocritical douchebag, probably. You fit that one. You fit that one too well. Take a good look at yourself. Inventory yourself. Not pointing my fingers at anyone in particular, so if that landed too close to home, do your own inventory. Start praying more, start worshiping more. Start praying more, start worshiping more if you're a Christian. It's easy if you're struggling with your faith. It's easy to not struggle with your faith. Pray more, worship more. Pray more, worship more. Pray more, worship more. Pray more, worship more. That's how you reconnect. And that's how that connection becomes strong and powerful. There's no other way. That's it. It's really, honest to God, that simple. If you're trying to reconnect yourself, if you're struggling, if you're one of these like Christians who are like, oh, I have all these doubts, I'm riddled with these doubts, easy to solve. Pray more, worship more, pray more, worship more, pray more, worship more. Authentically try harder to establish a real connection to your spiritual beliefs. That's good advice for everybody anyways, by the way. Now, some of this is politics. Let's get back to that. Let me see how much time I have. I'm ranting and raving a little, but I think it's productive. 15 minutes. All right, I got time. Relax. I'm ranting and raving a little. It's what I do. Rant and rave. That's basically how I make videos. Open up a microphone and go blah, blah, blah. That's how I roll, guys. If you don't like it, they're the cat videos. Go watch the dang cat videos. I don't care. Go watch the dang cat videos. I don't care. Get out. All right, so establish rapport. Some of this is politics, some of this is politics, some of this is politics. Remember, we are to be ambassadors for Christ. Step number 1, establish rapport. Is there a step 2? No. Why? Because they're going to pick up more from what you actually are than what you say you are. Every single solitary person, you go to a job, let's say. You put a cross on your desk. That's the beginning. That should be the beginning and end of your Christian witness. Why? Everybody saw the cross. Everybody knows you put it there. Every single solitary person in that office knows that you're a Christian now. And they're talking about it. Promise. That's how it works. He's a Christian? You think he's a Christian? I bet he hates gays. I bet he hates, if it's a normal person, they'll go, I bet he hates gays. If it's an atheist, they'll go, he's also not into science. He's probably has really weak argumentation. That's how you'll parse it out. But that's the witness then and there. And then they'll start examining you. When they talk to you, they will be looking for Christians' playbooks. Atheists will be looking for apologetics scripts. That really hasn't penetrated in the real world. That's a whole nother story unto itself. But they'll know that you're a Christian right then and there. And they will learn more from what you actually are than anything you say to them. Why? They're expecting you to say all that garbage. Hello, where have you been? They're expecting you to talk about how much Jesus means to you. They expect you to come on strong. They'll be looking for it. And they immediately will be skeptical of it. Probably rightfully so. What will speak volumes to them is what you actually are. Why? Because you can't fake that. Are you actually committed to your Christian walk? Are you actually committed to your service to God? Are you actually, when the lights are out, when there's nobody there at night, what are you doing at 4 o'clock in the morning? And I'm not, I know you're looking at porn. I'm looking at porn, Greg. I know you are. I didn't mean it like that. I'm looking at porn. I know you are. I didn't mean it like that. I meant, what are you actually? That's what people are going to draw. You can't fake that. And it speaks volumes. And the more you actually are, and it's really easy to become more of the Christian you want to be. Pray more, worship more. That's the only way to do it. Pray more and worship more. That's it. There's no other way. Every other way is fake and will turn you into like one of these, I don't even know what these type of Christians are, these Mr. Holier Than Thou Christians. Those are the worst ones out there. Oh, I've become so holy that you wouldn't even believe. I don't even know what those guys' agenda are. I haven't even started on those type of Christians yet. But anyways, all right, so I guess that's enough for now. I've got a lot more to say on the subject. All right, so getting back to Brett. Now, the goal with Brett is to open up the lines of communication between me and the practicing atheist. That's actually step 1. Again, establish rapport. If there's to be any way that he becomes a Christian from the rituals that I teach him or the things that I give him to do, it's possible. I am going to hopefully give him the tools to evidence the ontology for himself. And then he will decide for himself. And I let go of the results. I put it in God's hands. I let go of the results. The results aren't really important to me. What's important to me is establishing this territory correctly. Establishing what I am doing here the right way. That's it. That's all that's important to me. And if he doesn't, if he winds up like, not really becoming a Christian, so be it. Ideally, I want to turn him into a hardcore Texas evangelist. Yeah, ideally. I mean, it'd be fine if he's like, kind of a milquetoast, weak-ass Christian, like, oh, Jesus is love, and I don't really believe in hell, and you can vote for the Democrats if you want to. That'd be fine. I'd be cool with that, but I'd much rather turn him into a fire-breathing Texas evangelist. Now, that would be an accomplishment. You look a year from now, and he's like, he's even got a Texas accent. He's like, if you wear a miniskirt in my town, you are going to burn in hell, children. It is sin before the Lord. Hallelujah. Jesus is going to be punish you from now to the end of time. That's what I would ideally like to see. Turn him into a monster. Turn him into Ken Ham times 1,000. That would be my ultimate goal. But barring that, I guess I'd be satisfied with him becoming like a wussy, like milquetoast Christian. Oh, I believe in some parts of the Bible, but not others. I don't really think there is a hell. It's probably annihilationism, because God would never do that. Jesus is love. You can vote for a Democrat if you want. One of those type of wussy Christians. That's probably what he'll become if he's to become a Christian. But again, the results aren't really mine own. Why? Because what's motivating people to, if you are talking to people on Twitter, keep this in mind. If you don't know what the most important reason is in your heart why you actually are a Christian, do some soul searching. Why? Because there are some aspects of Christianity that are more real to you and more important to you than others. And if you don't know what they are, you should take a look. I actually thought about it long and hard. That's how I came up with, wow, peace of mind was really the most important thing I was looking for. Bar none. Nothing else was even close. Nothing else was even close. That's what I wanted desperately more than anything else was peace of mind. Because that's just who I was. As you may be able to kind of piece together, I was pretty high wire. I was pretty hard charging, let's just say. Pretty dissolute, pretty out there. Could you gather that from how I act now? Well, maybe. So what's the most important thing to you? And then try to establish a meaningful conversation with people on Twitter. I know it doesn't really work all that well, but it's better than these stupid debates. Give it 3 or 4 tweets. If you aren't connecting with someone, move on. Move on. Give it 3 or 4 tweets. 3 or 4 tweets into a conversation on Twitter, and you pretty much know if this is worth your time or not. I'll go into that in the future too. So, I guess that's all for now, kids. I got more to say, but I will leave it at that. So, the project with Brett is pretty straightforward. I'm hopefully going to give him the tools to evidence God for himself. Now, if he stays a baby eater, so be it. So be it. I would prefer him to be a baby eater that tithes. Honestly. Then I'm totally fine with it. You can believe whatever you want, Brett. As long as he's giving my organization the money up front, you can believe whatever he wants. I don't care. And then we'll see. What it's really about ultimately is establishing open lines of communication. You establish why that's not in a lot of people's best interests is because both sides are afraid of it. Why? Because both sides secretly fear that they're wrong. Bang. Yeah. Yep. I applaud Brett's integrity. He's not afraid to establish open lines of communication with Christians and try to really understand people's spiritual experiences. He doesn't think he's going to come to a God belief. He might not. But he will start to understand what motivates Christians a lot better than most people. So he will have a lot more valuable things to say 2 years from now on the subject of the space that he's actually engaged in. Look at him 2 years from now and he will have learned a lot just from John Vervaeke and just from this project and how he approaches it. He will be, he'll have a lot of valuable things to say on the subject. Most of these other people are just going to be emoting, not worth hearing, not what they have to say won't be relevant at all, won't be worth any of your time. So that's what's in it for him, whether he becomes a Christian or not. He's going to get some really good insights into what makes the other side tick, and it's going to be really useful to him in his project. And whatever his passion is, I think it is in fact to establish communication. What's in it for me is I think you open up the lines of communication and people are going to decide for themselves. And a lot of people are going to decide that I'm telling the truth. And I've got a lot of things to say. Why? Because I'm not going to say it's obvious that I am, but I think it's kind of obvious that I am. And what's going to motivate people is different for everybody. What motivates people is different. People read between the lines and they search for what they think they want. And they search for what they think they need. That's what's really honestly motivating people in the real world. They are actually out and about, hungrily searching for what they think they want and what they think they need. They do not necessarily know what they want because they haven't really looked. And they have no idea what they need. So, but that's generally the rule of the road out there. There you have it, kids. Yeah, I gave you a lot of food for thought, but whatever. Deal with it. Handle it. Handle it like an adult. That is all for now, kids. The Mass is ended. Go in peace. Amen.